A pineapple for me.
Hello, and welcome back to Hate and Bake. My name is AJ, and I am ready to show you some masters we can hate together, alright? This is a pretend cooking show where I yell at dead people, essentially. And today, well, here's a little story I've got to tell about two bad cousins who with fruit to sell. It started way back in history with your boy, Sanny D. This is a re-recording. I recorded all of this. This is like the next day. I'm re-recording it because I felt like it was too low energy. So my solution was to start with a parody of the Beastie Boys. And you know what? It worked. It's flying. Let's go. We're talking about the Dole cousins today. Like Sanford B. Dole, James Dole, Dole Fruit Company, pineapples, the whole 9 yards. You should hate them. Let me tell you why. And we're going to make a pineapple upside down cake while we hate on James Dole. Here's some milk, some butter. Most importantly, a little bit of that all-purpose flour. Can't forget the vanilla extract. Some brown sugar, but I'm not going to let you see that. Just the quick flash. Table salt, sea salt, iodized salt, something salty. Get a little salt in your cake. Baking powder. Baking powder? Baking powder. And most importantly, 2 eggs. Gotta keep them separated. Next up, I think we're gonna have like 1 little bit of cane sugar. The rest of the bag of cane sugar. A little tartar sauce. And here it is. An upside down pineapple with some cherries. So, the whites arrived in Hawaii around the mid-1800s, and everything went to shit then. This is mainly going to be focused on the decimation of the Hawaiian natives' culture, so buckle up. I don't think we'll ever have a happy topic here. You don't hate someone who did good things, that's for sure. So, a bunch of missionaries arrived in the Hawaiian Islands in the early 1800s with the hopes of making Christianity like the popular religion. Everybody's Christian, much easier to control their thoughts and actions. They gave them written language. They created the Hawaiian alphabet, which was pretty neat. They put it to paper, which kept it alive more than likely. But in the meantime, they also were making babies and educating them and ruining their lives with sickness and the decimation of their culture, just so they could believe in Jeebus. One of these missionaries had a child. It was born on the island. It was raised on the island. Had everything go well for it. Their name was Sanford B. Dole. This guy again. Sanford B. Dole was raised on Hawaii. He went to school in the schools that his parents owned, which were colonial schools. And I don't need to explain that, hopefully. Do a little looky-uppy. See how good colonial schools were for the native populations. Then, as so often the case with young, bright minds like Sanford B. Dole, he found himself being radicalized in the Middle East, that is, the United States state of Massachusetts. He went to school, tried to go to law school, never got a law degree, went back home with his radicalized thought, and found a bunch of friends, and they created this cute little cell of like-minded individuals on the Hawaiian island. And by like-minded, I mean white business owners, government position. And in 1887, him and all his domestic terrorist little buddies got together and overthrew the Hawaiian monarchy at bayonet point. The revolution was called the Bayonet Constitution. But what this constitution did was largely get rid of the monarchy, put a lot of powers in a cabinet in the Congress of the island, and, won't you know, Congress was controlled by all of Sanford Dole's friends. And, basically, Dole was in power. And it wasn't all bad. It gave voting rights to lots of people. Now, voting wasn't really a thing before on the island, and by lots of people, I mean men who owned land. But freedom, baby. Now, finally, Sanford B. Dole is the president of the island. The white people are oppressed no more. He has all the power he could possibly want in this small pocket of the Pacific Ocean. What does he do? That's right, he throws it all away to become America's sub-little bitch. Sanford B. Dole wants to become a state. Bonus shit stain! President William McKinley, when he was still serving in the House, passed a Tariff Act of 1890. The McKinley Tariff Act of 1890, perchance. We don't have to get into it. Basically, what you need to know is this wasn't liked by the public at large, and this was passed in October 1890, and it was railroaded, like a tax act in 2017. through Congress by one party. The people of the country in November said, yo, this tariff act is stupid. It only benefits wealthy industrialists. So they voted that party out of office. Nobody saw that coming. Like, current President Harrison at the time in 1890 fully planned on being the president again. And that is seen with a little bit of tomfuckery. In January 1891, Grover Cleveland becomes the president. He's the opposing party to Harrison and McKinley. Using these names doesn't represent the modern ideal of the party. Don't use your presentism. But Harrison, McKinley were Republican, and Cleveland was a Democrat. At this time, that basically meant, like, imperialism and what the United States should look like on a global scale. And then we were starting to get that soft focus on our economy. It would really come up in the early 1900s when we were really making lots of money with some big name guys, Rockefeller, all those guys. Ford. I lost topic. Anyways. So McKinley passes this tariff act in the hopes of protecting American interests in the free market because capitalism just isn't cutting it for American companies. The American people don't like this because now they're paying a lot more for their imports. They vote Harrison out of office. Cleveland becomes the president in January 19. Cleveland becomes the president in 1891, which is a problem. Sanford B. Dole is the president of Hawaii at this time, and he is fighting hard for statehood because it costs a lot of money to import the fruit into the United States. So if he was just a state, he wouldn't have to pay those import tariffs. He largely took over Hawaii to do this. There were tariffs before the McKinley Act. He and his friends wanted to import to the United States as cheap as possible. So they took over the state, or they took over the country, the nation, the sovereign nation of Hawaii, to sell pineapples cheaper because Jesus told them to. The Tariff Act became a huge problem for Sanford and his terrorist cell. He needed to act fast if he was going to, operate a government. But unfortunately, semi-peaceful coups like the one he did in Hawaii takes time, and by the time it was finished, January 1891, Cleveland is president. And Cleveland, well, he's got big plans. At the time, American sentiment was, hey, Hawaii should be a state. If a lot of Americans live in the Hawaiian land, then we should own the Hawaiian land. It's pretty easy math. Oh, I love that joke. I hope someone... Hawaiian land? Oh, that's so good. So President Harrison literally leaves a treaty of annexation on the desk for Cleveland. Hawaii should be the 50th state. Cleveland comes in, has a meeting with Sanford B. Dole, and says, nah, fuck you. We ain't doing this. You ain't getting a state. Not in my 4 years. And that's wild for like three things. A, against popular opinion. Cleveland was just elected on popular opinion, like alone. B, it was the morally right thing to do. And I challenge you to find one U.S. president who did the morally right thing out the gate. Lincoln literally had to have his arm twisted to emancipate slaves. Woo! Nobody does the morally right thing just for the morally goodness of it. It's pretty neat. Cleveland said he had issue with how the state, how the power was claimed. He just didn't like Sanford B. Dole, is what it seemed like. And then the third thing that makes this just absolutely nuts. The last president literally aided the coup. President Harrison aided the 1887 Bayonet Revolution by putting a boat of 300 Marines off the island with the mission of protecting American property and lives. If the coup was all Americans, if the Hawaiian royalty fought back at all, the Marines would have landed. This was fully supported American coup. Like in 1993, we issued an apology to Hawaii because we did the bad thing. So we were like, oh, I'm sorry, Hawaii. We didn't mean to coup you like that. 93. It took 100 years for us to apologize formally. Cleveland actually went so far as to insist the monarchy being reinstated under Queen Liliuokalani, who was the sister of the king who signed away the throne to Sanford B. Dole. Cleveland never would grant Hawaii their statehood, so Sanford B. Dole found himself in the precarious position of having to do work. This story, okay, so the reason this story is so good to me, the hate and bake primeness, it is a perfect combination of the Spider-Man pointing meme and then the kid sticking his bike, or like a stick in his bicycle tires, and being like, how could people do this to me? Because 1891 rolls around. You have Sanford B. Dole, a Republican, he acted on the wills of the Republican Party to stage a coup in Hawaii. McKinley, in an effort to capitalize on this nest egg of sugar and other tropical fruits that could be grown in Hawaii, passes the Tariff Act of 1890 to just planning that we will have this source ready to go. 1891 rolls around, Cleveland stops this source. Hawaii now has to pay taxes on everything, way more than they should have, because the plan failed. So you've got this, all the Republicans at the time just, pointing at each other, who could have done this to us? Oh, those damn Democrats! But you motherfuckers staged a coup, and it the coup was successful, but you're so bad at playing the game at home. You're so bad at it that you've now fudged yourself for 4 years. And hey, I'm Team Cleveland in this one. I'm not arguing that the Republicans should have gotten away with it. But if they were any smarter, they probably could have. Just goes to show, some things don't change. So, for the next 4 years, Sanford and his terrorist friends have to run a government, which is scary, because they're fairly confident Cleveland's giving material support to the Royalists on the island. And there's tons of fights over the course of Cleveland's administration, but they all came to a climax at the very end, January 1895. A new president is going to take over, so Hawaii is looking more and more like a state as we get closer to the new century. President Sanford B. Dole, doesn't want any royalists causing a skiff for the new president, so he is going to end things now. And in the last week of January 1895, the royalists launch attacks, and Dole puts them all down. Roughly 200 royalists are killed in 3 days of fighting. If you're curious, only one of the Republican government at the time die. After the third battle, the remaining rebellion was disbanded and their leaders arrested, including Queen Liliuokalani, who then abdicated the throne in 1895? 1898. No. Right around there. In the 1890s, Queen Liliuokalani abdicated the throne, formally ending the monarchy in Hawaii. She was the only queen to ever serve the nation of Hawaii. The Kingdom of Hawaii, damn it! Fun fact, this is also the first time the United States overthrew a sovereign government. Hey baby, you gotta get your practice in somewhere, because Woodrow Wilson's on his way, and he's going to try a lot. With the queen gone and the throne formally surrendered, the next American president is able to come in and clean up the mess that he made nearly a half-decade ago. That's right, the new president is that shitbird, President William McKinley. Oh, good, he gets to clean up his mess and save his terrorist allies from this scary little Tariff Act that he himself passed. He came to the rescue in 1898, making Hawaii the 50th U.S. state. Public sentiment at this time changed dramatically, though. We aren't all for the idea of Hawaii because of the way that we got it. Unfortunately, war with Spain would mandate a forward naval operating base, and we got that little Pearl Harbor in the United States, baby. Not only do we have Pearl Harbor, we have got pineapples on tap, bitch! Sanford B. Dole has opened the door wide for one of his family members to come in and destroy this culture! That's right, let's say hi to our number 2, Mr. James Dole. James Dole is another masshole. He came to Hawaii to get a nice piece of land from his cousin, the president, and started to grow the pineapple, a fruit long associated with the decimation of entire cultures for the want of the powerful. James is going to dot Hawaii with these little bushes. How's he going to sell the fruits? By bastardizing and selling the easiest to digest ideals of Hawaiian culture, and plastering them all over his product. Floral prints, leis, luau's, grass skirts. Boom, the mythos of Hawaii is born on James Dole canned pineapple can. He sells these little fruits. How's he gonna grow them? Underpaid labor, baby. That is the Massachusetts way. He's not even going to employ many native Hawaiianers either. He's setting up this plantation being like, I got jobs. I'm creating jobs for these people. But because the local population is so decimated by either war or disease brought in by colonizers, Dole has to look for immigrant labor. So he goes to Japan, brings in a bunch of cheap migrant workers, furthering like the destruction of the Hawaiian culture. More diseases coming in. It's just lots and lots of native Hawaiian Islanders died during this time, and maybe not through direct action, but when we're talking about something like this, there isn't going to be a lot of written history from the people who are being murdered in the street. So it's hard to know just how many abuses they face, but when you look at the power dynamic and what happened in the 5 years of the Cleveland administration, you can infer that pretty bad things were happening just to the Hawaiian natives. I mean, I don't have any reason to believe that they're being treated significantly better in Hawaii than they were treated anywhere else in the United States. So this idea of coming in and then essentially kicking them off the island, essentially saying this is ours and we're bringing in other people to help, is prime American capitalism, right? Yeah, okay, so James Dole brings in Japanese migrant workers. They're working on this plantation. Eventually, Dole's going to buy an entire Hawaiian island to turn it into a pineapple plantation. This motherfucker's got money. Then, in an effort to make pineapple even more accessible than God planned, he held an airplane race. And this is probably like, aside from the Dole Pineapple Company or Dole Fruits, right below that, like, the most popular thing is James Dole Air Race. He held an air race from Oakland, California to Honolulu, Hawaii in 1927. He offered a first and second prize, I think it was like $50,000 and $10,000. 12 pilots left Oakland, California, but he didn't have to worry about any sore losers because only 2 pilots survived the trip. And James Dole was like, yo, 2 out of 12 is a very good return on investment. So, motherfucker invested a lot into commercial fruit delivery via airplanes. And that's how we all got pineapples. That's how we can eat pineapples. As Dole's pineapple brand became more popular, the Hawaiian mythos became more desirable, and tourism started to grow on the island. These very small, easy-to-digest ideas of luau's, floral shirts, and grass skirts became the Hawaiian culture. Fuck everything else. And we did it because we can. We're Americans, and we love Jesus and liberty, baby. Thanks for watching.
A pineapple for me.
If in your emotion you began to sway, went to get some air or grab the chair.